Let's get serious for a minute here. And when I say let's get serious for a minute, I mean let's get SIRIUS serious here for a minute. Sirius is the brightest star in the nighttime sky with a visual apparent magnitude of negative 1.47. Of course, Sirius is very interesting, especially when you start studying the elite and you start studying the secret societies and various tribes and religions. You'll find it. Almost everything revolves around the Sirius star system, and that's one of the main things that you start finding out is that what we are told oftentimes is sun worship, and what you see as depicted as sun worship in Egypt and the rest of the stuff is not that bright star that you think is the sun. That's, of course, what these gatekeepers and whatnot want you to think. They don't want you to know that everything revolves around Sirius. Of course, if you look in like the Quran, it talks in the Quran about how Allah came from Sirius. I mean, goodness gracious, I found that out just a couple of weeks ago, and that was mind-blowing to know that, to see all this, everything that revolves around that. So let's talk about that here. It is located in the constellation Canis Major. Sirius can be seen from almost every inhabited region of the Earth's surface. Those living north 73.284 degrees cannot see it, and in the northern hemisphere, it is known as a vertex of the winter triangle. The best time of the year to view it is around January 1st, when it reaches the meridian at midnight, and under the right conditions, Sirius can be observed in daylight with a naked eye. Ideally, the sky must be very clear with the observer at a high altitude, the star passing overhead and the sun low down on the horizon. The name Sirius comes from the Latin Sirius. It is situated in the eye of the greater dog Canis Major. Therefore, it is known as the dog star. It's also known as the transition stage, the moving of consciousness from one reality or frequency to another, the spirit of wisdom in Zoroastrian teachings, and the bright radiating one. What to the eye appears to be a single star is actually a large binary star system consisting of a bright white main sequence of a star of the spectral type AV1 named Sirius A and the faint white dwarf companion of a spectral type DA named Sirius B. Sirius B is invisible to the naked eye. It packs almost the entire mass of our sun into a globe only 4 times as large as the Earth. It's an incredible mass. Sirius B's surface is 300 times harder than diamonds, while its interior has a density of 3,000 times that of diamonds, spinning on its axis about 23 times a minute. It generates huge magnetic fields around it. And that's interesting. We've talked about this lately with these different magnetic fields and electromagnetic energy, and how through the manipulation of electromagnetic energy and fields, one has the ability to manipulate reality. Now, if you go look into the work of people like Dr. Nick Begich, who has done work on in research in the HARP facility, I mean, he's found that amazing things can be done to the human brain by the manipulation of electromagnetic frequency waves. And certainly we know that the HARP facility would be capable of doing that. But, one of the things that I've noticed, and one of the things in my research I find interesting is when I was researching the film The Secret Right, I was doing research. Speaking of HARP, I was doing research, and I found out that Dr. Edward Teller, who was the father of the hydrogen bomb, was a Council for National Policy member. And what's interesting about that is Dr. Edward Teller also was working on the Strategic Defense Initiative, Star Wars, space-based weapons under Reagan. He was also a member of Majestic 12. And when Bernard Eastland gave the patent to Arco Oil for the HARP facility in Gakona, Alaska, he went up there on behalf of the Department of Defense to find out what the military applications for HARP would be. So I find that very interesting. But and we'll get into that. We'll get into some of that in just a bit as far as the electromagnetic relationship. The two stars Sirius A and Sirius B move around each other constantly, exchanging particles. Because of its greater density and magnetic field, Sirius B takes the lion's share, taking gases and materials of its larger host body. Sirius B has a super heavy, gravitationally powerful star made of concentrated super dense matter with a number of 50 associated with it, describing its orbital period. Every 49.9 years, Sirius A and B come as close together as their orbits allow, creating huge magnetic storms between them. As they approach each other, the stars both begin to spin faster as tidal forces become stronger, finally flip-flopping over and actually trading places with each other. This energy is eventually released to flow on magnetic field lines to the sun, which transmits it like a lens to all the planets. Now, last year I remember they came out with this, Microsoft came out with this new software. I remember they were announcing it was coming out. It was going to be free to download. It was called Microsoft Worldwide Telescope. And I remember when I heard, was hearing about this come out, I was going, oh, wow, great. This is awesome. I look forward to this coming out. I can't wait to get this because, I want to go look at the Sirius star system. You'll be able to go out and look at planets and stars and, wow, awesome. So then I saw the news story and it came out and I went and downloaded the program. I was all excited and, oh, it's cool. It's almost like Google Universe, So I go and there I go and I look and lo and behold, you've noticed that on Google Earth that some things are blurred out and you're not allowed to see some things. Well, what I found was interesting is when I went to look at Sirius, the Sirius star system on Microsoft's Worldwide Telescope program, lo and behold, there it is, conveniently blurred out, ladies and gentlemen, where you cannot see the Sirius star system on Microsoft's Worldwide Telescope. Isn't that wonderful? Wow. So the most important star system in everything that we find, from secret societies to the elite to the priest class, on and on and on, and conveniently you're not allowed to see it. Well, doesn't that just bid well for these people? Based on changes in its proper motion in 1844, Frederick Wilhelm Bessel deducted that Sirius had a hidden companion. In 1862, Alvin Graham Clark discovered the companion, which is called Sirius B, or affectionately the pup. Oh, that's cute, isn't it? The pup. The dog star. Oh. The visible star is now sometimes known as Sirius A. The two stars orbit each other with a separation of about 20 AU over a period of close to 50 years. In 1909, Inhar Hertzsprung suggested that Sirius was a member of the Ursa Major moving group based on the system's movements across the sky. However, more recent research by Jeremy King at the Clemson University in 2003 questions whether that is true, since the two components of Sirius appear to be too young. Sirius is roughly half the age of the other members of the stream, so their common motion is likely a coincidence. In 1915, astronomers at the Mount Wilson Observatory determined that Sirius B was a white dwarf star, the first to be discovered. This means that Sirius B must have originally been by far the more massive of the two, since it had already evolved off the main sequence. In 1920, the first spectrum of Sirius B was obtained at Mount Wilson Observatory. Sirius B, although small and faint and about 10,000 times the dimmer than Sirius A, is extremely dense and heavy enough to exert influence on Sirius A. The pull of its gravity caused Sirius's wavy movement. And so it's interesting. You see some of these pictures, but curiously, some ancient observations of Sirius describe it as a red star. To the Romans, this meant an angry god, and they are known to have sacrificed red dogs to this star. Today, Sirius A is a bluish white. The possibility that stellar evolution of either Sirius A or Sirius B could be responsible for this discrepancy is rejected by astronomers on the grounds that the time scale of thousands of years is too short, and there is no sign of its nebulosity in the system that would be expected had such a change taken place. Alternative explanations are either that the description of red is a poetic metaphor for ill fortune, or that the dramatic scintillations of the star when it was observed rising left of the viewer with the impression it was red. Well, see, a lot of people believe that it's actually a tri system, and that there actually are three stars, and that one of them is a red dwarf. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's what's been theorized. To the naked eye, it often appears to be flashing with red, white, and blue hues when near the horizon. Sirius is the standard star for the color white in ancient China. Multiple records from the 2nd century BC up to the 7th century AD all describe Sirius as white in hue. In the Sumerian civilization, predating the Egyptians, their epic poem, the Epic of Gilgamesh, describes a dream of Gilgamesh where the hero is drawn irresistibly to a heavy star that cannot be lifted despite immense effort. This star descends from heaven to him and is described as having a very potent essence. and being the god of heaven, Gilgamesh had for his companions 50 oarsmen in the great ship, Argo, a constellation bordering Canis Major where Sirius is found. Sirius was astronomically the foundation of the Egyptian religious system. It was the embodiment of Isis, wife and consort of the god Osiris, who appeared in the sky as Orion. Ancient Egyptians called Sirius the dog star, after their god Osiris, whose head and pictograms resembled the dog that of a dog. In Egypt, Sirius shines for the most of the summer, and since it is such a bright star, the Egyptians actually believe that the additional light from the nearby star was responsible for the summer heat. Now, of course, this country, the United States of America, where I live, was founded in July 4th, 1776. And so what happens? What happens right around that time? Well, I was born right around that time in 1976. And so what happens is right around that time when you have is when Sirius is rising. It's reaching its apex. And so that was why it was important for the Masonic founding fathers to initiate this country in at the time in which they did, right as the Sirius was at its ascension. Sirius was worshipped as Sothis in the Valley of the Nile. Sothis is the Greek name of a star that the Egyptians considered most significant. Sothis is concluded by modern scholars to be Sirius. The goddess Sothis, Sopdet, and Sepdet personified the dog Sirius. This star was the most important of the stars in the ancient Egyptians, and the heliacal rising of the star came to the time of flooding in the Egyptian New Year. Right, so that's every time when it would show up, when the star would start begin to rise, that was when the flood would come every year. So that's another reason why it was important. Lots of things revolve around there. We're going to talk more about this on the other side. Probably get into some of the stuff about the Dogon as well tonight and delve deep into this. Saturday night edition of the Global Reality. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Stay with us. Back here with you on this Saturday night edition of the Global Reality. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And we're talking about Sirius, and we're going to talk about the Dogon tribe and the rest of this. I was going to talk about this last week, and then we had our entire show was based around calls last week, which was great. We had a show, the last Saturday night show, we did the thing where people called in with their strangest experiences, which was an interesting show. I don't think I've ever done a show like that, which is 2 hours of pure phone calls, which was just great. So I enjoyed that. But, there is this obsession with Sirius. When you start studying the priest class and you go back and you find out these things about how the priest class, especially in ancient Egypt, who told the slaves that the sun was God. Well, meanwhile, they had their own trinity of gods, the tripantheon of gods, and that's very important within the Freemasonic lore as well. You've got the Trinity, which is also represented by the Pythagorean theorem, and each part of the Pythagorean theorem relates to Isis, Osiris, and Horus, which also relates to Sirius, and that's why the idea of in these people who there's been such a cover up, so people don't find out that about the triple star system of Sirius, because it does relate to Isis, Osiris, and Horus, which the Trinity has also been represented in various ways. You'll see it as you'll see it in the Masonic lore as Jabulon, which is Jehovah, Baal, and Osiris, but it's still the same thing. It's still the Trinity. Don't get that confused. You'll also see it in the term Israel. A lot of people forget that. Israel, Isis, Amun-Ra, which was the monotheistic sun god from the 20th dynasty of Egypt. That's why you see Hebrews and people that are Jews are into the monotheistic thing. They don't believe in Christ as a savior, believe in the one God. That's where that comes. So you have Israel, which means Isis, Amun-Ra, and of course the Elohim, the ones that came down and mated with the daughters of man. So you have this Trinity represented there. And it all goes back to, in the end, to Sirius. So you see this extensive obsession with Sirius, and we'll talk some about Robert Temple's book in just a bit. They have. Well, they say they have. There's a lot of people that say they have found the third star, but then there's other people that poo-poo and say they haven't. So I don't know. You got to look into it and find out for yourself with belief. Or I'm not here to tell you it's true or it's not true. I'm just telling you that that I believe from what I've looked at, because there are people, they found this other red, what they say is a red dwarf. That's what they call it. Is in a lot of people believe it's a 3-star system. But it seems to be there's been a massive cover-up to hide that. But it does match with what we know about how the trinity of gods that the priest class has always worshipped is how it relates to the Sirius star system. So that's very interesting. But, you know, there's a great book called The Sirius Mystery by Robert Temple. If you never read the book, check it out. Of course, Robert Temple is a high-level Freemason, but his information is good, but I still don't think he's given us the whole story. But none of these people ever do. I mean, you know, that's why you have to do your own research and not look at any of the work of these people. That's why. But they always have one figurehead, folks. And you'll notice, I notice that the people in the Council for National Policy do this as well with their lower level issues. But there's always one figurehead. You'll have, you'll have somebody like Zechariah Stitchman with the Sumerian stuff, and then people think that that's all there is. And when you start looking into, they go, "Oh, you're into that Zechariah Stitchman stuff." No, I don't like Zechariah Stitchman. He's a gatekeeper. In fact, I've got information that he's a CIA asset and has been from the jump. I've gotten that information from people who have confirmed that. But, you know, all these people, Ami Zawas, the Egyptian guy, there's all these gatekeepers, and they're there to keep you from ever finding out what the true story is. But we'll talk some about Robert Temple's Sirius mystery in just a bit, and talk about some information pertaining to him. Sothis and her husband, the god Sa, came to be viewed as manifestations of Isis and Osiris. Now, of course, you've had in the tripantheon, in the trinity of gods that relate to Sirius, you have Isis, Osiris, and Horus. Now, Horus, of course, was the son of Osiris and Isis. Now, isn't that interesting? When you look at all of this, yeah, exactly. Why is Stitchman the only one that's translated the Sumerian text? That's a good question, isn't it? Same thing with all this other. Exactly. Well, he's the gatekeeper of that, because that's the thing, folks. They don't want us to know what it really means. And of course, if you go do the research into what Saddam Hussein was doing just prior to the invasion in 2003, Saddam Hussein was number one, he's in the process of rebuilding King Nebuchadnezzar's palace, but number two, he was also in the process of building this new library that was going to have all of the ancient Sumerian cylinder seals and tablets from the Sumerian civilization, and allegedly, again, I say allegedly here, contained within these Sumerian tablet seals that Saddam Hussein was just about done making a library of in 2002. Allegedly, contained within those cylinder seals was information that was going to prove that the Jews were not the true Semites and not the true God-chosen people, but the ancient inhabitants of ancient Iraq and Samaria and the bloodlines that existed in that area of the world. And do you think for a second they were going to let that happen? Hell no. That's why it switched so quickly from, we have to get Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan because he attacked us on 9/11 to boom, okay, now we're going to go into Iraq because Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction, which were never found. And so it's very interesting when you go back to think about Sirius and how it relates and why it's important to the priest class and why it's important to this trinity. I mean, you look at Washington, D.C. alone, and you will see, the Georgia Guidestones are lined up to Sirius. You've got the Washington Monument, which is Osiris penis, lined up. All these, there's so many of these icons and buildings around the world all lined up to Sirius. What in the hell's going on here? And, of course, you see the Capitol domes, which is the breast, which also relates to Isis. And then, of course, on the back of your dollar bill, you have the all-seeing eye, which is, always been considered to be the symbol of the Illuminati. And that also is the symbol for Horus. So it's very interesting that Sothis, which is also known as Sirius, and came to be viewed as manifestations of Isis and Osiris. She was represented as a woman with a star on top of her headdress. And I'll put a picture of what Sothis or Sirius looks like, so you can see that in the chat room there. And she's seen as a seated cow with a plant between her horns, as depicted on an ivory tablet. Now, that's interesting. She would be depicted as a cow or a bull, because it makes you think of Baal, doesn't it? We're going to talk more about this on the other side. We're going to delve into this deep tonight, and hopefully try to get into figuring out, maybe just having a conversation on the importance of Sirius, and we'll talk about the Dogon tribe as well. Really delving into what these people are into, folks. This is The Golden Reality. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Stay with us. Back Here with you on this Saturday night edition of the Global Reality. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We're talking about Sirius and just, why this is so important and why the iconography and all of these various things around the world and these archaeological sites are all built around Sirius. And really, what is it that's encoded here that they're trying to tell us? It's a lot of people believe that that a race of people and a race of beings, what a lot of people refer to as the hidden masters, the people who control the elite in this world from behind the scenes, came from that star system, and that these elite bloodlines, and this is why the importance of interbreeding and in keeping their bloodlines pure from the ancient civilizations of Sumeria to today has been important. And that idea of that is to keep an elite class in charge of this planet, whose bloodline can be traced back to the original creators who used genetic manipulation here on this planet. Now, whether or not that's true, whether or not it's not, again, you can't always think that the stuff that I talk about here, I always believe in all of it. But, I think it's important that, just because I don't believe in it or I don't, it sounds outlandish, doesn't mean we shouldn't have a conversation about it and to find out what these people believe, because, my goodness, the evidence is overwhelming as to the importance of Sirius to the elites. And, of course, we'll talk about the Dogon tribe as well, the tribe out of Africa that, claims that they were the descent from Sirius. So we'll talk about that as well. Sirius was both most important of ancient Egyptian astronomy. One of the deacons, the star groups in which the night sky was divided, with each group appearing for 10 days annually, the heliacal rising, the first night that Sirius is seen just before the dawn, was noticed every year during July. And the Egyptians used this to mark the start of the new year. It was celebrated with a festival known as the coming of Sopdet. As early as the first dynasty, Sophis was known as the bringer of the new year in the Nile flood. When Sirius appeared in the sky each year, the Nile generally started to flood and bring fertility to the land. The ancient Egyptians connected the two events, and so Sopdet took on the aspects of a goddess of not only the star and of the inundation, but of the fertility that came to the land of Egypt with the flood. Right. So that's what Sophis is also often referred to as a hermaphrodite, because male and female representations, basically the one that is able to seed the life and as well. What about what we believe? Who's we? What about what you believe? I don't care what we believe. There is no we. There's no collective we. It's not about, there's no collective belief for all of us to have. You can believe what you want to believe for yourself. And I don't have any bearing on that. And I believe what I'm going to believe for myself as well, because that's what it's about. So you got to get away from this collective ideology that we're all supposed to have some universal belief about this. Like, we're all supposed to believe that either the Anunnaki seeded life on this planet or they didn't. Either way, why does it have to be that we all believe one way or the other? I just don't get that. I don't give a rat's tail what you believe, to be honest with you. And I don't give a rat's tail if you know what I believe. It really doesn't matter. What the matter is that we are seeking to find out what the things are that we don't know, that's been kept from us, that this priest class has held. These are the things. You understand, all modern religion, all religions have been based around the restricting of this knowledge, folks. When you start to get in and you start to find out, you start to understand that the lies that we've been sold with these watered-down versions of truth through religion come from the restriction of this knowledge and the knowledge of who the true creators really are. And so her aspect of being a fertility goddess was not just linked to the Nile. By the Middle Kingdom, she was believed to be a mother goddess and a nurse goddess, changing her from a goddess of agriculture to a goddess of motherhood. This probably was due to her strong connection with the mother goddess Isis. Not just a goddess of waters of the inundation, Sopdet had a link with water. She was believed to cleanse the pharaoh in the afterlife. It is interesting to note that the embalming of the dead took 70 days. The same amount of time that Sirius was not seen in the sky before its yearly rising. She was a goddess of fertility to both the living and the dead. In the pyramid text, she is a goddess who prepares yearly sustenance for the pharaoh. In this, her name of Year, she is also thought to be a guide in the afterlife of the pharaoh, letting him fly into the sky to join the gods, showing him goodly roads to the field of reeds and helping him become one of the imperishable stars. She was thought to be living on the horizon, encircled by the Duat. In Egyptian mythology, the Duat is the underworld, where the sun god Ra traveled from west to east during the night, and where he battled Apep. It was also the place where the people's souls went after death. The structure of the Duat and the dangers faced there by dead souls are detailed in such texts as the Book of the Gates and the Book of the Dead. The most famous scene from the Duat is the weighing of the heart, in which the dead were judged by Anubis, whose father represented Ma'at, the goddess of truth. Souls which were weighed down by sin were eaten by Amit. It was not known whether a sinner's heart is heavier or lighter than a feather, only that to be accepted into a raya, the heart must weigh the same. In the pyramid text, paralleling the story of Osiris and Isis, the pharaoh was believed to have a child with Sobdet. Your sister Isis comes to you rejoicing for love of you. You have placed her on her your phallus, and your seed issues into her. She is being ready as Sobdet, and Horus Sobdet has come forth to you as Horus, who is Sobdet. So you see this. So you see this idea where, the this separation of male and female. It almost seems that when you study the ancient texts like this, where it's talking about your sister, and let me read this again. Your sister Isis comes to you for rejoicing for love of you. Have placed her on your phallus, and your seed issues into her. She's being readied as Sobdet, and Horus Sobdet has come forth from you as Horus, who is Sobdet. So you see these things where you have male and female in regard to the creators almost becoming one, where there almost is no separation. And almost that separation between male and female doesn't happen until it occurs in the physical realm here on this planet, on Earth. It's very interesting. You see that quite a bit. And that's, again, why when you look into things like the goddess worship, and you look at some of this stuff, Guyman, don't crack me up, please, on air. It's, yes, alien erotica right here on the Global Reality. It's going to get hot. But really, when you look at Columbia, and you look at Minerva, and look at some of these things, these representations of the goddess statues, Columbia, well, that's why they look like hermaphrodites. That's why they have these male and female tributes to them. That's why. And so Sobdet was believed to be the wife of Sa, the star of Orion, and the mother Sobdet. She was also thought to give birth to the morning star Venus. The pharaoh being described as the father in the pyramid text, she was linked closely with Isis, just as Sa and Sophed were linked with Osiris and Horus in the limitations of Isis and Nefertiti's. For Osiris, Isis called herself Sopdet, saying that she will follow Osiris in the heaven. Sopdet was also connected to the goddess Setet Abu, Elephantine. She was also given a masculine aspect. See? So why is it that they have this dualistic aspect of their personality? That's very interesting in itself. We'll talk more about this on the other side. We're talking about Sirius, Egyptians, Freemasons, the Dogon. We're going to talk about all this tonight, right here on this Saturday night edition of the Global Reality. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Stay with us. Back here with you on this Saturday night edition of the Global Reality. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We're talking about Sirius and we're really in the Dogon tribe and Egypt and all this stuff, and really how it relates, because, again, this is what we get into when you start to study. I mean, I got into all this stuff from going back farther and farther and farther and studying, just my initial thing was always trying to find out what the elite were into. That's how I got into the whole priest class thing, was really a lot through my research into the Council for National Policy, and going back deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's what we're going to get into in volume 2 of The Secret Right. You can go to secretrightmovie.com right now and order your copy of my new DVD, the newest volume 1, which has just now come out. And that's where you can do that at secretrightmovie.com. But I want to know how far back this power went. How long has there been people that have been restricting information? And how long has there been a religious hierarchy that's been telling the sheep, as it were, as they refer to as the useless eaters, the slays, the profane. How long have they been telling the profane that one version of events while keeping the other real story to themselves? And the answer to that question is as long as there's been people on this planet that's been going on. So that's how I got into this. Right now, let's go to the phone lines. Global Reality, you're on the air. Go ahead.
With me?
Yeah, it's you.
Hey, how's it going, John?
Hey, not too bad.
All right. Hey, since we were talking about alien stuff, I wanted to see if we could get into a little bit about I really bit hard on a lot of stuff Freeman was saying about Mars being the original Atlantis, and possibly Mars and Earth's kind of jumping in orbit. That way, the Martians would be light skinned and then landing in an arc in the Caucasus Mountains and all that. And as far as the Nephilim, I really believe in a lot of that stuff, and yet I don't trust Sitchin too much. And I wanted to see what your thoughts were on that.
Well, I'm with you there. That's why I've never looked at any of the Sitchin stuff. I've just basically gone and looked at what has been there from the ancient, from the teachings and whatnot. But I don't believe in his stuff either. He's a gatekeeper supreme. And the reason that is because if you really study what Sitchin is saying, he basically uses that information to prove that the Jews are God's chosen people. That's what he uses that information for. So he's a priest class stooge as the rest of it. As far as the whole thing with Mars and Sirius and that whole thing, as Freeman talking about, I don't really know. I don't really know if I necessarily agree with that. And I'll tell you why that is, because to me, I see Mars as a sort of a middle point. I think Mars it was sort of whoever, if there was indeed people that came here from other places, Mars was some place where they had set up shop initially for a period of time and then moved on. Of course, very interesting if you look at the ancient area of Sumeria, which is now Iraq. Before it was known as Sumeria, it was actually known as Acadia. And before it was known as Acadia, that whole area was known as, of course, Cydonia. And it's also, coincidentally enough, as everything else is that they're into, it's located on the 33rd parallel. Well, what's interesting is that the place on Mars where the alleged face is located and these pyramid structures are located is also on the 33rd parallel on Mars, and also is also by coincidence named Cydonia. So what I look at when I see that stuff is I see it as sort of a relics are left there by people who were on their way, who eventually came and made their way to Earth. Now, where they went and made their way after that, we just don't know. But it obviously seems that there was some little stopping points when they entered this solar system. They made their way and boom, boom, boom. And that ties into a lot of stuff about when people talk about Palladians and whatnot, and people talk about this group of aliens called the Palladians that basically go around every time a planet's life cycle is about to come to an end or something. They go around and they find remnants of other planets and take it and seed life with it on another planet. And, of course, that theme is carried over very heavily in the new film with Nicolas Cage called Knowing, the idea of seeding new plants with life. But as far as is thinking about that goes, I don't really know. But what was the last part of your question?
It was pretty much just the Mars and the going off of the ancient Sumerian stuff for the reptilium or the Elohim or the Nephilim.
Oh, right. Yeah. A lot of that stuff. Yeah, a lot of stuff gets confused. I think here's the thing: is that when you look at some of these, serpent iconography is littered around the planet. Now, I don't necessarily believe that Dick Cheney and George W. Bush and these people that are of the bloodlines shapeshift into reptiles behind closed doors, but I do think that my personal belief is that, look, we're so limited in our scope of understanding. We see ourselves, humans, as being the only thing on this planet that has consciousness and is able to talk and communicate in the way that we do. But that's the whole thing is, go study the Temple of Hathor at Dendera in Egypt. I mean, this giant temple that was built in tribute to some sort of deity that supposedly has dominion over our Milky Way galaxy. There's pictures in there of these giants. The thing is built to house giants. I mean, if you look at the pictures of the Temple of Hathor, a person standing inside this thing looks, 2 inches tall. in these ceilings. It was built. This thing was built, to the scale to house giants. There's no other structure in Egypt that's like it. And inside of it, they show these giant people that look like humans that are giants working next to smaller people that are wielding these giant technological devices that have snakes that come out the end of them. And basically it's like a flower bud. Then the flower buds, and then an upright snake or uraeus comes out of it. So I don't doubt that there was probably people in the past that had consciousness in the way that humans have, that took on the form of what we believe to be animals. People that look like lions or people that look like snakes or anything else. And these people, had high technological advancements and were able to basically take their DNA and crossbreed it with DNA from things that were found locally. So certainly, when you look into the Sumerian text and they talk about the Caucasoids and this white-skinned people that lived up in the Caucasus Mountains region, and how they used the most amount of their DNA and crossbred with these white-skinned people, the Caucasoids, to create the Caucasians. And these were the ones they put in positions of kingship in ancient Sumeria. And then this is why these bloodlines have tried to stay pure from throughout history. And of course, they spread out throughout the world, and they spread into throughout Europe and through Germany and through Rome, and then on up into Europe, and have now proceeded their conquest around the world. But I think that it's very interesting to me when you look at this stuff and you start to find out, is it a coincidence that it talked about putting these white-skinned people, the Caucasoids, made with the most of their DNA, and they put them in positions of kingship, and they were called the demigods. That's what the priest class, the original people that were created and put in positions of kingship in Sumeria, they were called the demigods because they were considered to be just a bit below the actual gods. So, I just find it very coincidental you would have people that their bloodlines are important today, and all these same people are in charge. And these ancient texts talk about, them creating them, putting them in the positions of kingship, and why they look down upon us as not being, pure. I find it hard for that to be a coincidence, Everett.
Mm-hmm. I got you.
All right, well,
I appreciate you answering.
Hey, take care, man. I got to go break. Second hour around the corner, folks. This is the Global Reality. Stay with us. Back here with you on this Saturday night edition of the Global Reality. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Glad you all could join us here. We're getting into some interesting information tonight. Sirius, extraterrestrials, the Dogon tribe, all of it. We're just going to get into all this. I had a ton of news here tonight. But you know what? F the news for now. Let's just get into this stuff and go to very interesting information. But you also do have one of them phone lines for you as well, 512-904-8014. And if you do happen to call it, just give me a minute to go to you, because if I'm in the middle of talking about something, I may make you sit there for a minute. But I will get to you. But we are back here. And don't forget, my newest film, Secret Right Volume 1, is now out. And you can get that at secretrightmovie.com. That's www.secretrightmovie.com if you'd like to get a DVD from us and help support our work. Yeah, it's very important information to get out there and to understand and to bring more into the fold and more into the language of this sort of research and work. So there you go. So we were talking about, before the break, we were talking about Sirius and how it relates to Egypt and whatnot. Well, let's talk a bit about how where Sirius has shown up in other civilizations other than just Egypt. The Dogon described this star specifically as having a circle of reddish rays around it. And this circle of rays is like a spot spreading, but remain the same size. The Dogon are a West African tribe who have known about and worship Sirius A and its twin invisible star Sirius B for the past 5,000 years. They have also been aware of the planets circling the sun in elliptical orbits, the four moons of Jupiter and the rings of Saturn. They say that Sirius B is immensely heavy, invisible, very small, yet extremely powerful. Their understanding of the two stars' orbits coincides exactly with modern astronomical findings, yet was arrived at thousands of years before it was scientifically proven. How do you explain that? Can somebody please tell me that? because you can strip all of this stuff away. Really, to me, you can strip all this belief system stuff away, and I believe that or I don't believe that. Well, first off, number one, and I've talked about this extensively over the past several weeks on the show. Anybody who starts talking in absolutes, I think talking in absolutes is dangerous. When when the moment that you say, well, I would never believe that. That's not true. It's absolutely not true. I see so many people all the time. It's absolutely not true. The Anunnaki aren't real. It's absolutely not real. I know for a fact they're not real. Well, how do you know? Where's your proof? Well, I don't have any. Well, it's the same thing somebody says when they say, well, the Anunnaki or whoever, I'm just giving an example of that, or whoever absolutely real. Well, where's your proof? Well, I don't have any. Well, okay, neither one of you then. So the absolute non-believer has no proof, and the absolute believer has no proof. So where does that lie? Well, again, somewhere in the middle of that where you just have to say, okay, we don't know. But look, strip all that away for a second. Strip all that away for a second and think about this. The Dogon knew 5,000 years ago about these orbits, and they knew about the rings of Saturn, and they knew about the 4 moons of Jupiter. 5,000 years ago, folks, long before science, where did they get that information? How did they find that out? And you can go, to people now, to the Dogon tribe now, and they will point to Sirius, and they will say, we came from there. So, you strip all that away, folks. You strip away your belief systems and everything else, and you boil it down. You've got people that have been on this planet for 5,000 years that have had this information long before science ever proved any of it. I think that's very telling. I think that's, that right there should be a reason for you to be interested in this stuff. They also claim that a third star, the Emma Ya, the sorghum female, exists in the Sirius system, larger and lighter than Sirius B. This star revolves around Sirius A as well. And that's where the original information for it being a 3-star system came from the Dogon. And there's been an extensive amount of information there to cover that up. The Dogon also believed that approximately 5,000 years ago, amphibious gods called Nomo came to Earth in the 3-legged spaceships from the Sirius star system. They have described perfectly the DNA pattern made by the elliptical orbit created by the 2 stars as they rotate around each other. They believe Sirius to be the axis of the universe, and from it, all matter and all souls are produced in a great spiral motion. Well, that's interesting. And that's why when you look at how, the Trinity, the Tripantheon, as we talked about earlier, Osiris, Isis, Horus, or Jehovah, Baal, Osiris, or Isis, Amun-Ra, Elohim, pick one. It's all representative of the same thing. That's why it's very interesting. And that's why when the light bringer, when you read about in Freemasonic, what about Lucifer, the light bringer, and Lucifer relating being Horus and then coming from Sirius. The Dogon believe that Sirius is the axis of the universe, and from it all matter and all souls are produced. All right, folks. Looks like we're back here. Give me a second. That was strange. I was sitting there talking. I wasn't doing anything on my computer. All of a sudden, I had a blue screen of death. And my computer completely crashed. Now, this computer is only about a year old. It's a quad core, 4 gigs of RAM, and I don't know what could have happened. I feel like I got hacked. That seemed like a hack. I think somebody wasn't too happy about what I was just talking about with what I was about to say. But thank God I know what I was about to say. That was odd. I've never seen that happen. There was a loud pop in my headset too. It was strange. It was a loud pop and then everything just died. So I guess we're back here on the air. So give me just a second. Hopefully I didn't lose all my stuff that I had up on my browser. I got to bring everything back up. I don't have anything here on my stream. So bear with me for a second as we're back, but I wanted to jump back on the stream as quickly as I possibly could so we didn't lose listeners. But, as I'm trying to bring this back up, and I remember right where I was at. And so with this, when you look into this stuff with the Sirius star system and you start to understand this Tripantheon and how the Dogon believe that, being the spiral center of the universe where, souls originate from, that's very interesting. it's almost as if that's what we've been told through religion heaven is, about heaven. And actually how it relates to this system where, you know, if you were to go there in a physical body, you wouldn't really see anything. But how, you know, there's etheric energy and soul energy exists and comes from the Sirius system. So that's the end of it. So give me a second here just to bring everything back up. It was wild. Never have seen anything like that. I don't understand what, can't imagine what would have given me a blue screen of death like that, for just to have a complete system crash, but just totally odd. Wow. Everything's coming back up here. I hate when this happens. All right. Yeah, okay. Now we're coming back up. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I apologize. I don't know what in the heck could have caused that. Very strange. Says it, yeah, it just says that you received a message from because a hardware device's driver-related software has caused a blue screen error. Who knows? But nonetheless, let's continue here. The Dogon believes Sirius to be the axis of the universe. And from it, all matter and all souls are produced in a great spiral motion. Now, isn't that interesting? It would be a spiral motion, much in the same way of the double helix. In Greek mythology, Orion's dog became Sirius. The Greeks also associated Sirius with the heat of summer. The name Sirius is often translated to the scorcher. In the Quran mentions Sirius, that he is the Lord of Sirius, the mighty star, and that he it is who is the Lord of Sirius, and that he is the Lord of Sirius. And also, they don't mention here that it does say that Allah came from Sirius. And of course, you know, you said you've got the Order of the Eastern Star in Masonic lore. You've got, you know, the three wise men following the Star of Bethlehem. Now, how did the three wise men know? How did they know that there was going to be a virgin birth, the coming of the new Messiah? How did they know that there was going to be a virgin birth there by following this star? Because, folks, they were the priest class. They knew that there was going to be. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Very well could have been a denial of service attack on my router. Yeah, you're right. Very well could have been. That was the way it was odd, though. But they knew full well that there was going to, you know, come on, folks, virgin birth. What do you think that is? That's code for genetic manipulation. Have you not figured that out yet? Artificial insemination. So they knew full well of this. That's why, and they knew that energy and that soul energy that was going to be inhabiting in that body was coming from that area. That's what they knew. Because again, all these are reincarnations of the same thing. You know, you go back and you study Ea. Old Testament prophecy told them, yeah, I don't believe that. If you believe that, go right ahead and believe it. But you go back and you study the original secret society, the Brotherhood of the Snake, the Brotherhood of the Serpent, and Ea, whose father Anu. Of course, Anu Naki means the princes of the gods, the one true God. And of course, Anu, his son Ea, or also known as Enki, was said to have had compassion for man and set up this original secret society to teach mankind that we're all spirits inhabiting their being enslaved in physical plane bodies and being used for slavery, and that we're all capable of, he wanted to teach mankind what we're here for, what we're capable of, where we came from. And of course, this information was found out by the priest, and he was banished to reincarnate here in fragile human bodies. Jesus Christ, Quetzalcoatl, Enki, on and on and on. All these messianic people, all reincarnations of the same original energy that wanted to teach mankind who they were. More on the other side, folks. This is the Global Reality. Stay with us. Back here with you on Global Reality on this Saturday night edition of the show. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you for being with us tonight. Don't forget, I think as far as I know, there's going to be, from what Doug Owens said, there's going to be There will be a live Oracle Unplugged tonight following this program at midnight Central Standard Time tonight. So there you go. You can go and check that out if that's where if you're interested to do so. It's there. Oracle Unplugged is always a bunch of hosts get together and just throw it down for a couple hours. But tonight we're talking about the Sirius star system and how the various things that it relates to. And I'd like to read more about the Dogon. The primitive culture of Dogons is the most fascinating discovery for modern man. For this culture of simplicity, untouched and unknown until recently, might hold the keys to unlock the mysteries of modern-day man. His roots in religion. Sometimes if you can't solve the mystery on one end of the spectrum, it's suggested to try it from the other end. And the Dogons is definitely the opposite end of the spectrum of modern-day man. Taking this into account, let's take a look at the Dogons and their beliefs. The Dogon culture, untouched by the influence of modern religion, still live by the words of their ancient ancestors, abiding by a tradition that has been passed down to them by spiritual guides and teachers that came from the stars called nomos. Although modern-day theologians would like to sweep this under the rug, the story is out and is here to stay. Unfortunately, there are only a few that are aware enough to believe and understand the significance of this ancient and primitive tradition. For those of you that want to hear, the Dogons have a story to tell. The Dogons believe that in ancient times an aquatic culture came to them from out of the sky. Human-looking beings acting as saviors and spiritual guardians landed close to their village in a spaceship described to have 3 triangular legs. Being that they were amphibious, upon landing they filled a reservoir of water onto the land. Exiting their ship was done by diving into this reservoir. How strange and frightening this must have been to the Dogon of the time. After the initial arrival, the Dogons realized that much like our amphibious creatures today, the nomos were able to adapt to both environments. Thus, although their primary home would be water, they were still able to walk, talk, and live on land. Another thing that was so amazing about these star people was that, in fact, they had shape-shifting abilities. Whether it was done by mesmerization or not is unknown. As Dogon legend has it, the Nomo divided his body among men to feed them, thus giving them Nomo's life's principles. As the universe had drank of his body, the Nomo also made men drink. There's an interesting similarity here with the body and blood of Christ used in Christian religions. The Nomo was crucified and resurrected again to visit the earth, this time in the form of a human. Later, he will assume his amphibious form and will rule the world from the waters. Here again, we see another similarity in the Christian faith of Christ's crucifixion, resurrection, and return. And all of these things there's all resurrection stories. I mean, go study Quetzalcoatl, the serpent king of Mexico. And Quetzalcoatl was crucified as well. So, I mean, you have this, these are common themes that reoccur in all cultures. Although primitive in today's standards and completely cut off from the world, the Dogon tribe has advanced knowledge of our solar system. What the Dogons knew thousands of years ago, our scientists only came to discover in 1978, which was the dwarf star Sirius B. They only knew about it, but could point to its locality. Their claim to this knowledge came from the Nomo. They knew that Sirius A, the brightest star in our sky, is next to a small white dwarf called Sirius B. Reports of the fish gods are found all around the world, whether it be in our research of ancient history or in the study of modern-day theology. Interestingly, even though these cultures are separated by time and space, their descriptions of the fish gods are remarkably similar. The priests try to honor the fish gods by dressing them with a fish in a robe and a headset. Even today, our Christian tradition symbolizes Christ with the sign of the fish. The Dogon tradition claims that these alien visitors came from Sirius, the constellation of the dog. Southwest Indians still today look to the dog star as their home and seek psychic guidance from it, where we have taught our children to look at the dog star and make a wish. When you wish upon a star, makes no difference where you are. And where did that come from? Disney. Well, I'm sure that's a coincidence. Yeah. Surely, yeah. Walt Disney wasn't into any of this stuff. He wasn't a Kabbalist. He wasn't a Freemason. No. You guys, you know what? You know what I'm surprised? I'm surprised that nobody, and actually I'm going to do this. I'm going to try to do this over the next week. I'm surprised no one in the whole truth circles has done and I'm going to do this, and maybe I'll try to do it this week, and we'll have it prepared for you for next Saturday night's show. I'm surprised no one's done a full breakdown on Disney's the Fantasia yet. I I mean, unbelievable. The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Goodness gracious, man. You got Mickey Mouse conjuring demons and stuff, and these demons that eat souls, and then he goes and does all this magic stuff, and there's all these. I mean, that is a very, very occultic movie, littered with all sorts of Kabbalistic and just occultic stuff from beginning to end. I mean, it really is an unbelievable film when you watch it and think of it was made, I don't know, in the 1940s or something, 30s or 40s. Unbelievable. But there are examples of other cultures who worship amphibian deities and gods. In Babylon, the Babylonians' history tells of the fish gods who brought civilization to their people. Oannes, or O, was the principal god. And see, and that's where they lose me, though. I don't personally believe that these people were fish people. I believe that from what I've looked at and from other researchers that I've talked to, the whole fish people thing is a metaphor. Now, it's very possible they could have been, but from the researchers that I've talked to and from the research that I've done, when it talks about the ancients that traversed the Great Sea, what that is that's a metaphor of the Great Sea being space. So they traversed the Great Sea of space to come to Earth. And this is why they were referred to as fish people, because much like fish traverse the Great Sea and traverse great distances through water to seed there and to propagate their species. You know, look at different species of fish. And you'll notice that these certain species of fish will travel great distances through water to propagate their species. And so that, you know, that's when you look at that, that's exactly what you have. People that travel great distances to of course, propagate their species here on this planet. So I don't buy into the whole that these people were fish people thing and all this stuff. I've never, you know, that's always been something that I've always thought was a big piece of disinfo. So I'm just putting it out there. That's my thing. But I don't know. I don't buy into the whole fish people thing. I've talked to other researchers like Michael Starr and others who agree with me that, yes, it's a metaphor for those that traverse the great sea of space. So, no, water is an analogy for space. Space is not an analogy for water. It's really the other way around. More on the other side. This is the Global Reality. Stay with us. Back here with you on the Global Reality on this Saturday night edition of the show. I'm your host, Josh Reed. Thank you so much for being with us tonight for the broadcast. And a lot more to talk about here. And look, you know what? I mean, honestly, if you don't agree with the stuff that I'm talking about, or you don't agree with my beliefs on this stuff, do me a favor. Go get yourself a radio show and talk about it. I'm really not interested to hear on what you think that I'm right or wrong about. When I'm really strictly not really right or wrong about anything, I'm just relating information to you. Now, if you don't believe it, or you have other beliefs on that, that's fine. I stated that earlier in the show. I mean, I'm just so sick of this. Where people, you know, the bottom line of it is, you don't know it any better than I do. So if you want to try and argue with me about your point or something like that, you know, I mean, look, I don't believe we came here from friggin' fish people. I believe it's more likely that a race of people that had highly advanced technology came here and took genetic material from things that were available on this planet, took genetic material from themselves, crossbred it, and made the humans and Homo sapiens as we know of. That's why there's a missing link. Evolution and all that crap, don't fall into that Darwinian eugenics trap. You know, survival of the fittest and the whole, that whole end of things. I mean, the whole bottom line of it is that, well, I'll tell you how we know. I'll tell you how I know. I guarantee you how I know we didn't evolve from friggin' apes, because all that crap came from Darwin. And Darwin was a eugenicist. I mean, wake up and figure this out for yourself. You know, that's the bottom line. But I think it's more likely from the evidence that's been presented that they crossbred with genetic material with apes and whatnot to create different races. That's more of what I believe to be true. Well, I mean, how can you say anything? I mean, that's a stupid argument. Oh, it's hard to prove any of this. Well, okay. Well, then how do you prove anything then? How do you prove that the air you breathe is real? How do you believe that that the ground you walk on is real? How can you prove that? How can you prove that anything that you see right now in you is real? How can you prove that the chair you're sitting in is real? Because I could just as easily make the argument and say it's not real. But then you can say, no, it's real. I'm sitting, I can feel it. And I would argue and say, no, it's not real. It's a hologram. It's your the collective energy of your mind creating that in your belief system. You're decoding it to believe it's real. So that's what I'm saying. It's a stupid argument. I mean, you could sit around, it's semantics. You could sit around and all say that. Well, how do you know? How do you know we didn't evolve from apes? Well, how do you know that we did? How do you know that we didn't? You have to eventually you have to get past that. You didn't start this argument. I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to somebody else. Quit thinking that the world revolves around you, you little twit. Jesus. I was talking to an anon in there. Didn't have anything to do with you. Good God. Oh, man. I hate people who think the world revolves around them. There's people that do that all the time. He's talking to me. He's talking to me. I wasn't talking to you. Okay? So just go ahead and get that out of your mind. I would pay no attention to you. You didn't cause anything. Here's what I'm saying is that we can sit around all day long and talk about semantics and talk about, whether or not, how can you say that we didn't evolve from apes? How can you say that we did? Either way, it boils down to what you believe to be true based on the information you've seen. Now, if you believe that we evolved from apes from the information you've seen, fine. That's fine. That's your belief. But to just say, where's the proof either way? Well, what? Because there's no proof either way means we can't talk about it? Look, all of this is an illusion. Every bit of it. How do you know any of this is real? You don't. But again, I'll give you my suggestion that I always say. You want to find out what's real and what's not. You want to meet the creator. Go grab a double-barrel shotgun, stick it in your mouth right now, pull the trigger, and find out what's real and what's not real. That's my suggestion. Otherwise, get back in the conversation. That's what I always like to say. I always like to say it when people, get into these conversations about, I don't believe in an afterlife, or I don't believe in God, or I don't believe in this. Well, why don't you go find out? If you're not going to go find out, then buck up and be a man and come and have a conversation. That's what I always say. Oh, nothing's going down. I'm just saying that people, you can't walk in the middle of a conversation and think that something's going on. No. Nothing bad, Doug. I'm just I just said that people they get wrapped up in semantics. Is this real or is it not real? Well, we can't prove this either way. I'm just saying that people will say, well, I don't believe that this is I always say, well, go find out. If you don't want to go find out what an afterlife is, go blow your brains out and you'll find out real quick what's real and what's real. Not real. But it boils down to this. I just think it's a stupid argument. That somebody was earlier was trying to say, whether or not, we evolved from apes or whether or not we didn't. And who's right, who's wrong. Well, what does it matter? It doesn't really boil down to who's right or wrong. Again, it boils down to what you personally believe. So quit trying to throw semantics in there and make it look as if, where did man come from? I don't know. Where do you think man came from? Why are you asking me? What is your belief? What do you believe? Where do you believe man came from? Tell me. I'd like to know your answer, what you think it is. What do you mean it's all theory? That's just a stupid argument. Okay, so if everything in the world is theory, then what are we supposed to do? Just not talk about anything at all? That's pretty boring if you ask me. So I'm just not gonna involve myself in that sort of conversation anymore. I've wasted a lot of time, too much time, I think, right now talking about it. So just do me a favor, and if you're going to say that whether or not one person believes that, well, then everything in the freaking world is theory. Then, good God. Think about it. You could very, very well say that everything in the world is theory, so then there would be pointless discussion and talking about anything, wouldn't it? It's just retarded. Final segment around the corner. This is the Global Reality. Stay with us. Back here with you, the Global Reality, on this Saturday night edition of the show. And I thank everybody for being with us. And, I waste a lot of time talking to this ass clown in the chat room. And look, again, I don't really give a rat's ass if you think something's a theory to me, not a theory. If you want to just call everything a theory, then what's the point in having a conversation about it? We can prove that there are people on this planet that believe and have information 5,000 years ago that life on this planet existed from other places. They had scientific advancements and had scientific knowledge we didn't prove for thousands of years. Now, that's not a theory. You can prove that people had knowledge that science didn't come to for thousands of years. That's not a theory. We can prove that humans didn't evolve in the same way that other animals on this planet did. That's not a theory. So again, I could say that breathing is a theory. I could say that the chat room that you're in exists in theory. And the chair you sit in exists in theory. But again, where does that get you in a conversation? It doesn't get you anywhere. It gets you back to saying that it's pointless in having a conversation because it's all theory anyway, so why talk about it? You know what I mean? That's just idiotic. And the only reason I wasted so much time dealing with, some stuff is just common sense, exactly. And dealing with this is because that's how people like to negate conversations. Anytime anybody starts getting into a deep conversation, here comes somebody, the semantic train comes to town and pulls in and starts, breathing is a fact. Well, how can you prove it? How can you prove it? Really? What if it's a theory? You know what I mean? So, look, that's the whole thing about it is that, it's got to be people just being silly. Because you can prove that there are tribal people thousands of years ago that had information about this stuff. And no, it boils down to me trying to get out information and you coming in the chat room under Anon like a coward and not picking a real name and not see, I know you know what my name is, but we don't know what your name is. So by the fact that you're anonymous makes you a coward and makes anything that's coming out of your mouth, nobody cares about it. You have no stake in the game because you're anonymous. So pick a name and come in and buck up or call in like a man and argue your point. Otherwise, you're just an anonymous coward who's going around and trying to negate people's information. That's all there is to it. And so my belief is that we didn't evolve from apes. So you look again, when you start looking into the Eugenics Foundation, you start finding out about people like, my God, Darwin was the head of the Eugenics Foundation for 10 years, Tavistock Institute. So all these ideas from the Tavistock Institute and the rest of this stuff that we've been told through National Geographic and the rest of this stuff for years has been working on behalf of Tavistock. That's where all of this man evolved from ape stuff came from, period. That's exactly where it began. Again, look, I'm just saying that, yes, I agree with that, Guyman. It is totally a theory. I'm not going to say what it is, but yes, I would agree with that. It is a theory. A theory never mind. I'm not even going to say it. Leave it to Guyman to get me friggin' thrown off my game. No, look, it boils down to one thing. If you believe, again, personal beliefs, you have a responsibility to take information and look at it from an objective point of view, and then decide for yourself what's real. I mean, I don't get up here and tell you what my beliefs are and talk about information, trying to convince you that that's how you should think. And personally, I believe that life on this planet was seeded from advanced beings with advanced technology that came from other places and used genetic material from themselves and crossbred it with genetic material on this planet to create Homo sapiens. And that they did put an elite priest class and an elite class of bloodlines that have been interbreeding from the dawn of time and are now manifested themselves into this elite that are setting up a new world order that we talk about. I believe that. Now, if from going on 17 years of research, that's what I believe. Now, if you don't believe that, then that's fine. It doesn't mean that you are more right than me or I'm more right than you, because that's the conclusion that I've come to from what I've looked at. It simply means that that is what I have looked at, that's what I've found, and a lot of other people have found that by looking at their information as well. But again, what starts to happen is that anytime you start talking about information or getting into areas of things that question people's belief system and question people's, their whole understanding, then you better not talk about that. Better not talk about that. And again, who were they created by? I don't know. Figure it out for yourself. Why are you trying to rely on me to tell you who I believe these people are, what they look like, where they came, or anything else? I'm telling you from all of the information I've looked at from years of studying secret societies, the priest class and everything, Sirius plays in heavy. And that's my belief. I mean, when you look at from the Egyptians to the top of the priest class to on and on and on, we see that there is a heavy body of evidence that points in the direction that whoever or whatever seeded life on this planet and whoever or whatever our souls are came from that star system of Sirius. Now, is that where your soul or your etheric being or energy goes to after your body, if your soul leaves your body, your physical body? Very well could be. So that's the whole thing. I'm just here to tell you how I'm looking at this stuff from what I pulled together and from looking at it. And it doesn't have to be anything that you agree with. But, just to say that, okay, the man evolved from apes, that's a theory. Man was seeded on life from other planets, that's a theory. So because they're both theories, then let's not talk about it. Well, screw that. We're never going to get any farther. Are they interbreeding because they have a different DNA than us? Very well could be possible. I can't say absolutely that is a fact, but I will definitely say that is a distinct possibility. It's very interesting. They want all this information on us, right? They want our DNA database. They want everything on us, don't they? But we aren't allowed to have their DNA, are we? I mean, let's get some independent analysis on their DNA and see what's going on. It'd be very enlightening. Folks, that's our show. I want to get right for tuning in. SecretRightMovie.com if you want to get a copy of my newest film, The Secret Right. They're shipping out now. My name is Josh Reeves. I love each and every one of you. We'll see you back here Monday, 11 to 3 Central Standard Time for the show. You guys have a great weekend. Take care.